What would you do if your worst nightmare wore a human face and waited for you behind bars? Some people believe that prisons are only for the guilty, but sometimes life itself throws the innocent into the jaws of hell. That's where our story begins. On a scorching afternoon, when the sky above the prison yard glows orange and the walls seem to whisper threats of violence. Everything changes the moment Daniel Torres, a man whose calm eyes hide more pain than anyone suspects, crosses the threshold of Stonegate Penitentiary. He holds nothing but a small, battered duffel bag and an aura of stillness that unsettles even the guards. Whispers follow him as the metal doors slam shut behind him. Who is this man? Some say he killed with his bare hands. Others think he's just another soul lost to the system. Daniel knows one thing. Here, weakness is a death sentence, but he walks with the quiet dignity of someone who has already survived things far worse than concrete walls or steel bars. The prison intake officer looks Daniel up and down, making a joke about fresh meat, and his laughter is echoed by inmates watching from above, pressed against bars like vultures awaiting a feast. There is a certain electricity in the air, a tension so thick it almost crackles between Daniel and the men who watch him, searching for any sign of fear. He doesn't flinch, doesn't meet their gaze. Instead, he lets the chaos of the cell block wash over him as he's marched past jeering faces and tattooed fists pounding against metal. It's here, in these first agonizing moments, that reputations are born or destroyed. One wrong look, one sign of weakness, and your fate is sealed. But Daniel's expression remains unreadable. He's neither defiant nor submissive. He simply endures, as if he's learned long ago that surviving is an act of quiet rebellion. No one knows what brought Daniel here. Not the guards, not the prisoners, not even the prison's most notorious predator, Brutus Bull Harrigan, who sits in the far corner of the yard with a smirk carved into his thick face. Bull runs Stonegate, and everyone knows it. When new blood arrives, it's only a matter of time before Bull asserts his dominance. Daniel is led to his cell, just another body in a sea of broken men. He sits on the thin mattress, stares at the cracks in the wall, and listens to the howling of men who have already lost hope. But in the silence of his mind, memories flicker. Lessons from another life, shadows of a past he keeps tightly locked away. What no one realizes, not the guards, not the bullies, not even Bull himself, is that Daniel didn't come here to fight. But fate has other plans, and the first spark is about to ignite. Because when Bull sets his sights on Daniel, thinking he's found easy prey, he sets in motion a storm no one in Stonegate will ever forget. But what no one knows is that Daniel's patience has limits, and crossing them will change the rules of this prison forever. The sun slips behind thick clouds, casting the yard in a dusky gloom. Daniel moves with quiet precision, his gaze low, never inviting trouble. But trouble has a way of finding those who least deserve it. It starts with whispers, snickers from behind bars, sly nods, men marking the new arrival as an inevitable target. Stonegate isn't just a prison, it's a kingdom ruled by fear, and at the center of that kingdom sits Brutus Bull Harrigan, a man as wide as the steel doors and twice as ruthless. Bull's reputation is gospel in these walls. He breaks the spirits of newcomers, feeds on their terror, makes them a lesson for everyone else. His eyes land on Daniel with a slow-burning curiosity, like a wolf deciding whether to toy with its meal or devour it whole. Daniel spends his first night listening to the rhythm of fists against concrete, shouts echoing down corridors, and the mechanical clicks of cell doors. He barely sleeps. At dawn, as the cell block stirs to life, Bull stands at the entrance, arms crossed, smile fixed and menacing. His loyalists form a wall, watching for any sign of resistance. Breakfast in Stonegate is chaos. Metal trays clatter, insults fly, and a hierarchy built on pain keeps the peace. Daniel slips into the line, head down, but it doesn't matter. Bull has already chosen him. The first encounter is almost casual. Bull bumps Daniel's shoulder hard enough to spill his tray, sending eggs and toast to the floor. The laughter is immediate, echoing off the high ceilings. Daniel stoops to pick up his food, ignoring the chorus of taunts. Bull looms overhead, waiting for a reaction. "Didn't your mommy teach you to say excuse me?" Bull sneers, his voice loud enough for everyone to hear. Daniel looks up, just once, meeting Bull's gaze with a steady calm that disarms the bigger man for a fraction of a second. But that flicker vanishes as quickly as it came. Later, in the yard, the harassment continues. Bull and his crew shadow Daniel, mimicking his movements, inventing nicknames, shoving him every chance they get. Some inmates watch with a mixture of pity and relief, grateful not to be the focus of Bull's games this time. Others see an opportunity, aligning themselves with the pack. Daniel endures it all, every shove and every cruel joke, never rising to the bait. There's a discipline in his silence, a weight to the way he absorbs each blow without complaint. But Bull isn't satisfied. He wants fear. He wants the new guy to beg. By the end of that first week, Daniel is bruised, battered, and isolated. The guards pretend not to notice, and the other inmates keep their distance. Only the bravest dare to whisper to him at night, voices filled with warning, "Fight back, or you're dead." But Daniel simply nods, his eyes reflecting a storm that has yet to break. He remembers every lesson from a life outside these walls, every moment spent mastering control and waiting for the right time to act. Bull mistakes silence for weakness, and that mistake will cost him dearly. But what Bull doesn't know is that Daniel's greatest strength lies not in his fists, but in his patience. A patience that's wearing thin with every humiliation. Days blend together in Stonegate, each one sharpening the edges of Daniel's suffering. Every morning brings a new ritual of torment. Bull finds him in the showers, corners him in the laundry, even shoves him in the lunch line so hard he nearly falls. The bullying is relentless, calculated, almost artistic in its cruelty. Bull knows exactly how to break a man, never all at once, but piece by piece. Daniel, thin and unassuming, becomes a living example to the others, proof that Bull's rule is law. One afternoon, the humiliation reaches a fever pitch. The yard is full, tension high as a storm about to break. Bull calls Daniel over with a snap of his fingers. "You think you're better than us, new guy?" he bellows, the crowd already smirking, eager for a show. Before Daniel can answer, Bull snatches the book from his hands and rips it in two, scattering pages across the dirt. He grabs Daniel by the collar, shoving him to his knees. "Beg me," he demands. Silence falls. Every eye is on Daniel, waiting to see if he'll finally crumble. Daniel's hands tremble, but he stays silent. The humiliation burns deeper than any bruise. Bull slaps him. Once, twice. "You deaf?" I said, "beg." Bull's voice echoes off the concrete, vibrating with expectation. Daniel's eyes flick up. For a heartbeat, something ancient and cold flickers there. But just as quickly, it's gone. He lowers his gaze again. Bull smirks, believing he's won. He hauls Daniel to his feet, parades him in front of the other inmates, forces him to carry a trash bag back and forth across the yard while jeers and insults rain down. The other prisoners laugh, some nervously, some cruelly. Daniel bears it all, sweat and shame staining his shirt, jaw clenched so tight it aches. The next day, it gets worse. In the mess hall, Bull dumps an entire tray of food on Daniel's head, then kicks his chair out from under him. He's left sprawled on the ground, face and arms smeared with gravy and mashed potatoes. The guards, bored and jaded, barely glance up. "Clean it up or you'll eat it off the floor," Bull taunts. Daniel, eyes blazing for just a moment, silently wipes his face and begins to clean, pride buried beneath the weight of survival. At night, alone in his cell, Daniel sits with his knees pulled to his chest. The walls feel closer. The pain is physical, but the humiliation cuts deeper. Every memory of discipline, every lesson in patience and restraint, wars with the raw urge to fight back. But he holds on, barely. The other inmates talk in hushed voices. Some are disgusted by his passivity, others marvel at his restraint. But all agree, Bull won't stop until Daniel is completely broken. What none of them understand is that there's a breaking point for everyone, and Daniel is already teetering at the edge. The storm isn't far now, and when it comes, no one will be ready for what's unleashed. The smell of rain mixes with sweat and iron, hanging heavy in the corridors. Daniel moves like a ghost through the cell block, battered but not beaten, his silence now drawing whispers of something close to respect, or fear. Even the guards, who once scoffed at his quiet demeanor, begin to watch him differently. They notice how he walks with purpose, how he absorbs every insult without ever letting his anger slip. Bull, however, is restless. Something in Daniel's eyes unsettles him, a calm too deep for any ordinary man. Bull tries to shake it off, doubling down on his campaign of humiliation. But the harder he pushes, the more Daniel refuses to shatter. One evening, thunder rumbles outside as the inmates gather in the common area for a movie night. A rare treat meant to pacify tempers. Bull uses the opportunity to humiliate Daniel in front of everyone, knocking the remote from his hand and forcing him to sit at his feet. Laughter echoes, but this time, it's tinged with uncertainty. The other prisoners have started to notice how Daniel never begs, never breaks. His silence is no longer a sign of weakness, but a question hanging in the air. What is he waiting for? That same night, as lightning flashes outside, the fragile peace inside Stonegate shatters. A fight breaks out in the yard, a brawl between rival gangs, raw and brutal. Alarms blare, guards rush in, chaos erupts. In the chaos, Bull sees his chance. He corners Daniel near the wall, alone, shadows flickering across his face. "This is it, tough guy," Bull hisses. "No guards to save you now. The threat is clear, the moment unavoidable." Daniel stands with his back to the wall, hands open, refusing to raise his fists. Bull lunges, swinging wild and hard. Daniel moves, not with the panic of a victim, but with the fluid calm of someone who's seen this violence before. He ducks, sidesteps, lets Bull's rage exhaust itself. Even in the chaos, he refuses to fight back. The storm inside him is building, coiling tighter with each blow. Other inmates catch glimpses of what's happening. They see Bull swinging, missing, growing more desperate. They see Daniel's control, how he never lets his fear show. Rumors spread quickly. Maybe the new guy isn't weak, maybe he's dangerous. Maybe he's just waiting for something, some line to be crossed. That night, when the chaos finally dies down and the guards restore order, Daniel stands in the corner of his cell, sweat dripping down his face, heart pounding. He knows something inside him has shifted. The mask is slipping, and with every push, Bull is coming closer to a truth no one in Stonegate is ready to face. But the real turning point is only hours away. The game Bull thinks he's winning is about to turn, because Daniel's silence has always been a choice, not a surrender. And when he finally answers violence with violence, nothing will ever be the same. The night air is thick and restless, as if the prison itself can sense that something is about to erupt. Word has spread through Stonegate. Bull failed to break the new guy during the riot, and whispers swirl about what people saw. Some say Daniel dodged blows like a man possessed. Others swear they saw Bull, for the first time, hesitate. Whatever the truth, tension builds in every corridor, every shadow. Bull, humiliated and angrier than ever, refuses to let go. To him, it's not about Daniel anymore. It's about control, about making sure everyone remembers who rules these walls. He calls his closest allies, men just as broken and cruel, and together they make a plan. They wait until late, when the cells are locked down, guards distracted by paperwork and exhaustion. The power flickers. In the darkness, Bull and his crew slip down the row. Keys stolen, boots silent. They reach Daniel's cell. The door slides open with a metallic groan. Daniel stands at the back of his cell, eyes shadowed, expression unreadable. Bull enters first, fists clenched, voice low and trembling with fury. "Get up, now you fight." His crew blocks the exit. There's nowhere to run. For a moment, everything goes quiet. The only sound, the distant thunder, and the harsh breath of men who think they're about to witness a final, brutal lesson. Daniel rises slowly. He steps into the center of the cell, hands relaxed, body loose. Bull lunges, swinging hard. But this time, Daniel doesn't step back. He doesn't cower or let the blows land. He moves, fast, precise, controlled. One quick twist of the wrist and Bull's punch misses by inches. Another step, and Daniel is behind him. Bull turns, confused, only to receive a sharp blow to the ribs that knocks the air from his lungs. Bull's men hesitate, suddenly unsure. Daniel's movements are graceful, deadly, a dance he's known his whole life. A jab, a sweep, a kick. 3 men fall before they know what hit them. Bull charges again, desperate, but Daniel meets him with calm fury. In seconds, he locks Bull's arm, flips him to the ground, and holds him there, face pressed to the concrete. Bull grunts, struggles, but Daniel's grip is unbreakable. The other inmates watch, stunned into silence. Never before has anyone stood up to Bull, let alone brought him down with such ease. The sounds of the struggle draw guards who burst in, weapons raised. But what they see isn't what they expect. Bull gasping, defeated, his men sprawled out, and Daniel standing in the middle of the cell, breathing hard but completely composed. For a long electric moment, no one moves. The old order is broken. shattered in a storm of discipline and power no one saw coming. But the most shocking thing isn't the violence itself, it's the look in Daniel's eyes. He didn't fight out of rage or revenge. He fought with purpose, restraint, and a mastery that leaves everyone watching in awe and confusion. The legend of Bull falls that night. In its place, a new story begins. A story with Daniel at the center, no longer prey, but something much more dangerous. The cell block has changed forever. Fear and respect trade places in the eyes of every man watching. And for the first time, even the guards know. Stonegate has a new king, and he wears his crown in silence. Dawn crawls over Stonegate with a pale, uncertain light. The night's chaos lingers in the air like smoke. Every man in the prison is awake, alert, waiting to see what comes next. Daniel walks out of his cell, shoulders squared, face calm, a silence clinging to him that's heavier than any shout. He passes by Bull, who sits alone, face swollen, eyes cast down, his empire shattered in a single night. The other inmates, men who once laughed at Daniel, who once turned away from his pain, now clear a path for him. Some nod with cautious respect. Others lower their eyes, remembering their own moments of fear and humiliation. Even the guards treat him differently, watching with something close to awe, or at least a grudging acceptance. Daniel never raises his voice, never threatens or brags. He simply exists, and that is enough. Rumors swirl through the corridors. Some say Daniel was a martial arts champion on the outside. Others claim he was a bodyguard, a soldier, a man who learned to fight only because the world gave him no choice. No one knows for sure, and Daniel doesn't care to explain. His actions speak for him, and they say more than words ever could. Bull's crew disperses, loyalty crumbling in the face of real power. The fragile peace in Stonegate becomes something different, something steadier, built not on fear, but on respect. For the first time in years, the yard is quiet. The daily games of dominance and cruelty fall away. Men who once saw only enemies now see possibility, maybe even hope. Days turn to weeks. Daniel never abuses his new status. He helps those who are weakest, sharing advice or silent company. He never fights unless there's no choice. His story becomes legend, whispered to every new arrival as a warning. Never judge by silence, never mistake patience for weakness, and never, ever push a good man past his limits. Bull avoids Daniel now, their balance forever altered. Even the warden calls Daniel into his office once, asking what it is he wants. Daniel answers simply, to survive, to leave this place better than I found it. The warden just nods, unsure how to argue. One afternoon, Daniel stands by the window of his cell, watching a shaft of sunlight fall across the floor. He thinks of everything he's endured, every bruise, every insult, every day he wanted to give up and didn't. He thinks of the lesson Stonegate taught him, that true strength is the power to wait, to endure, to act only when you must. And when you finally do act, to do it with dignity, not hatred. In the end, justice wasn't about revenge. It was about showing that even in the darkest place, respect can be earned without cruelty, and peace can come from the most unexpected hands. And that's why Daniel's story stays with every man who passes through those walls. Because everyone in Stonegate remembers the day the silent newcomer changed everything, and proved that sometimes the strongest fighter is the one who never wanted to fight at all. If you felt moved by Daniel's story, share your thoughts in the comments below. Would you have done the same in his place? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and help us bring more real stories of hope and justice to the world. Your support helps us change lives, one story at a time.